A searing July sun blazed across downtown Chicago, making the air ripple like a mirage on desert asphalt. From the cracked window of my office, I could see waves of heat rising off the streets below. The old ceiling fan above me whirred in slow, pitiful circles, doing nothing but stirring the stale odor of cigarette smoke and sweat. My name's Damon Lockwood. Private investigator, though. On days like this, I sometimes questioned my career choices. I'd just returned from a small surveillance job, still wearing the same rumpled shirt I'd sweated through all morning. My throat burned for a cold drink, and I was about to grab one from the ancient mini-fridge in the corner. That's when the door slammed open. A tall stranger in a black hoodie stood there, chest heaving like he'd sprinted up the stairs. Without a word, he strode across my scuffed linoleum floor and threw a brown envelope onto my desk. Papers inside shifted with a soft rustle. The man's face, half hidden under the shadow of his hood, betrayed nothing but a low, simmering anger. "Stay out of Marcus Stanton's business," he growled, voice cracking like a whip in the heavy air. "Otherwise, you won't be breathing long enough to regret it." My pulse jumped. I fought the reflex to grab the .38 special from my desk drawer. But before I could even twitch, he bolted back through the door, leaving it banging on its hinges. I rushed into the hallway, but he was gone, vanished into the neon-lit corridors of afternoon Chicago. Returning to my office, I closed the door behind me and leaned against it. My breath shuddered in my chest. Marcus Stanton. That name was a ghost from my past, the last man on earth I wanted to be tangled up with again. I flicked the overhead light on, scanning the brown envelope. It wasn't sealed, so I let the top flap fall open. A single black and white photo slid out. Marcus Stanton, all right. Tall, square-jawed, wearing a grin like he owned the world. Across the bottom in red ink was scrawled one phrase, "Stay away." Thunder rumbled outside, or maybe that was just my heartbeat thudding in my ears. Damn. Last time I'd crossed paths with Marcus Stanton, he'd made me look like a fool in a high-profile embezzlement case. I'd proven he siphoned cash from his own company, but his lawyers tore my testimony to pieces. My reputation and my wallet hadn't been the same since. I exhaled a slow breath and rubbed the tension building at my temples. Was I about to walk right into a trap? Judging by the threatening visitor, I'd say I already had a foot in. Then, the phone on my desk rang. A shrill, mechanical buzz that snapped me into the moment. I slid into the creaky old swivel chair and snatched up the receiver. "Lockwood Investigations, Damon speaking." A woman's voice, low, silky, with an edge like broken glass, came through the static. "Mr. Lockwood, this is Felicia Stanton. I've heard you're the best PI in Chicago, or used to be." My grip tightened. Stanton. That last name, I'm listening. My husband, Marcus Stanton, has been missing for a month. She paused, letting the words hang in the sticky air. "I need you to find him." I forced a small laugh. "So the cops gave up already?" "The police think he's just indulging himself somewhere. Marcus is wealthy. He could be off with some mistress for all they care. But I sense something's wrong, and I'm willing to pay handsomely for results." I stole a glance at the photo on my desk. Handsomely used to sound nice, but with a fresh threat lingering, it sounded more like a loaded gun. "That's a big job," I said slowly. "I'd need details." "Of course," she replied in a measured tone. "But first, I need your promise you won't quit halfway through. My offer is non-negotiable. 20 grand to locate him, plus a bonus if you prove any extracurricular affairs. Is that clear enough?" My pulse drummed in my ears. So this was it. A direct path back into Marcus Stanton's orbit. A chance to unravel his lies or watch him slip away again. That confrontation had left me with a battered ego and a tarnished rep. Maybe this was my shot at redemption or my own funeral. "All right, Mrs. Stanton," I said, voice steady. "You have yourself a deal. Come by my office tomorrow. We can talk specifics." "Tomorrow," she echoed softly. Then the line clicked off. The phone's dial tone hummed like a warning siren in the silence. I set the receiver down and noticed my fingers trembling. Marcus Stanton again. A month missing, and I'd just been told to keep my nose out of it. "Hell of a day, Damon," I muttered, pushing back in the chair. I reached for the photograph. That cocky grin burned into the paper. "Stay away," the red scrawl demanded. I shoved it back into the envelope and tossed the whole thing in my desk drawer. If these people thought a vague threat would scare me off, they didn't know me very well. Staring at the dusty fan overhead, I felt a tight knot of anger and curiosity twist in my gut. Once, Marcus Stanton had humiliated me in public court. Now, someone wanted me to steer clear, which only lit a fuse inside my head. I'd walked away humiliated once this time. I wasn't backing down. I flipped off the light. The office sank into shadows, illuminated only by a crack of evening sun through the window. Outside, car horns blared and sirens wailed. Inside, the air pressed hot and heavy, but all I could feel was a slow burn of determination. This was personal, and if I had to walk through the gates of hell, I'd make sure to bring the heat right back to Marcus Stanton's doorstep. The next morning felt like déjà vu, minus the mystery stranger. My office was still stuffy, an old AC unit that coughed more than it cooled. I straightened my tie and tossed back half a cup of stale coffee, my eyes drifting to the photograph locked away in the drawer. Another day in paradise. A sharp knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. I opened it to find Felicia Stanton standing there, wearing a crisp white blazer and dark pencil skirt. Sleek hair, polished nails, she had the aura of a woman used to commanding a room. But I caught a flicker of anxiety in her eyes. She was trying to look calm, but her posture was just a touch too rigid. "Mrs. Stanton, come in." I gestured to the worn leather chair across from my desk. She stepped inside, surveying the cramped office. "Quaint," she said, forcing a half-smile. "I see your decor hasn't changed much since whenever it was last updated." "Thanks for noticing," I returned dryly, sitting down. "So, let's talk about Marcus." Felicia's lips pressed together. "He's been missing for 32 days. No calls, no texts, no sign of him using any credit cards. The police took my statement but acted like it was a marital spat. I've tried everything, calling his friends, checking with family, but nobody claims to know anything." She passed me a folder. Pictures of Marcus, a few bank statements, and a copy of his driver's license. "If you can find him, I'll give you $20,000. And if you discover proof of an affair, I'll add 50,000 more. I whistled low. 70 grand total. That's one hell of a bonus." Felicia shrugged, but her eyes flashed. "Money isn't an issue for us, Mr. Lockwood. I want my husband found. And if he's with some woman behind my back, well, let's just say I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man he really is." I studied her face. Under that cool exterior, Felicia was seething anger, betrayal, maybe fear. Hard to say which felt stronger. "All right," I said. "I'll need to know more about his habits. Did he mention anything before disappearing? An argument? A plan to travel? Any big deals he was closing?" She shook her head. "Not that I know of. Marcus was always busy with his so-called projects. Sometimes he'd spend weekends at business retreats. I stopped asking questions months ago." I leaned forward. "Mrs. Stanton, before I take this on, there's something you should know. Marcus and I have history. A couple years back, I investigated him for embezzlement. Long story short, I uncovered evidence, but he waltzed out of court scot-free. Frankly, we don't see eye to eye." Her gaze flickered. "I know all about that, and I couldn't care less. Maybe you'll be even more motivated to find him." A small twist of her mouth. "As long as you get me answers." "You said the police shrugged it off. Did you file a formal missing person report?" "Yes, and they told me to sit tight. They offered me an app to track his phone if it turns on." She gave a humorless laugh. "It hasn't. Maybe it's broken, or maybe he's smart enough not to use it." I nodded, flipping through the folder. "All right, I'll start by talking to people at his old company. See if anyone's heard from him. I assume you'll have no problem wiring the first portion of my fee?" She pulled out a check and laid it on my desk. $5,000 up front so you can start immediately." Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "Just don't let me down." I slipped the check into my drawer. "I don't plan on it, Mrs. Stanton. Let's just say I have my own reasons to see how deep this rabbit hole goes." When she stood to leave, her phone buzzed inside her purse. She glanced at it, eyebrows knitting, then looked at me. "My driver's waiting. I'll be in touch." "Stay safe," I said, opening the door. As she walked out, I couldn't shake the feeling that Felicia was holding back something major, like she already suspected more than a casual disappearance. I sat down, heart thudding. This was official now. I was on Marcus Stanton's trail again. And if last night's threat was any clue, that trail might be littered with more than old grudges. Half an hour later, I found myself pushing through the revolving doors of Holcroft Industrial Lighting, the company Marcus once co-owned with Bishop Holcroft. The lobby smelled of new carpet and fresh paint. Clearly, business was booming, at least for the partner who didn't vanish into thin air. A friendly receptionist glanced up. "May I help you?" "I'm here to see Mr. Holcroft. Name's Damon Lockwood." She arched an eyebrow. "Is he expecting you?" "Let's say it's about Marcus Stanton," I replied, passing her my card. That name was the magic key. She pressed a button on her desk phone and spoke quietly. Moments later, a tall man in a tailored suit strode into the lobby. Bishop Holcroft, silver-templed hair, a firm handshake, and an air of authority that came from running a multi-million-dollar enterprise. "I understand you're inquiring about Marcus," he said, voice clipped. "I have a few minutes." He beckoned me to follow him down a long corridor lined with motivational posters and bright LED lights. We entered his glass-walled office, where a severe-looking woman typed away at a corner desk. That must be Rita Meadows, his personal assistant. She shot me a sidelong glare and returned to her screen. Holcroft sat behind a gleaming desk. "Close the door, please." I did as asked. The hum of the office grew muffled, replaced by the air conditioner's steady drone. Holcroft studied me from across the desk with thinly veiled distaste. "You're Damon Lockwood," he said slowly. "The private investigator who testified against Marcus a couple years ago." "That's right," I answered, leaning back in the chair. "His wife hired me to find him." Holcroft shook his head. "Figures. You realize we parted ways after that fiasco? I couldn't risk keeping him as a partner once rumors of embezzlement surfaced. But do I know where he is now?" "Not a clue." I watched him carefully. "Sure about that? Felicia believes something serious might have happened." "That's not my concern anymore. The board forced him out. He left with a tidy severance to avoid further disputes." Holcroft spoke as though Marcus was ancient history. "He had girlfriends, you know. At least 2 that I can name." My ears perked up. "Girlfriends, please do share." Holcroft waved a dismissive hand. "Justine Palmer and Mabel Carter. Back then, it was common knowledge he entertained multiple women. My assistant, Miss Meadows, can give you their contact details. She used to arrange flowers and phone calls on Marcus's behalf." He let out a humorless laugh. I suppose he thought he was untouchable. I glanced at the expensive artwork on the walls. Sounds consistent with everything I know. How about business associates or possible hideouts he might retreat to? "You assume he's in hiding." Holcroft crossed his arms. "I wouldn't be surprised. Marcus is the type who moves money around and disappears when it suits him." I frowned. "Well, thank you for the leads." Before I stood to leave, the door opened a crack and Miss Meadows slipped in, handing me a printout with 2 names, addresses, and phone numbers. She didn't say a word but shot me a glare as if remembering the chaos I caused back in court. I tucked the paper in my jacket. "Appreciate it." Holcroft got up, heading for the door. "Just do me a favor and keep my name out of any messy fallout, Lockwood." Outside the office, I exhaled. The place was polished, professional, and cold just like Holcroft. But at least I had a tangible lead, Justine Palmer and Mabel Carter. Maybe one of them had seen Marcus more recently than they'd admit. As I passed Rita's desk, she cleared her throat. "Mr. Lockwood," she said stiffly, "if you happen to locate that snake, Marcus, tell him we want our money back." I paused. "Money? You think he took more after his forced departure?" Her stare could have frozen a furnace. "Men like that never stop taking. Good luck, detective. You'll need it." I left the building, the midday sun already punishing the sidewalk. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Felicia, reading, "Find anything?" "Working on it," I muttered, sliding the phone away. Holcroft's aloofness, Rita's bitterness, and Marcus's ghostly presence hovered over me like a thundercloud. Sooner or later, I'd need an umbrella or a damn good pair of running shoes. I only made it 2 blocks from Holcroft Industrial before that uneasy feeling of being watched crawled up my spine. At a corner deli, I pretended to fix a shoelace, letting the city's bustle swirl around me, suits rushing from building to building, a delivery truck idling at the curb, tourists snapping selfies. Yet in that crowd, I caught a glimpse of a figure who seemed a bit too focused on me. I stood and walked briskly, mind racing. If Felicia's warnings were correct, maybe Marcus's enemies were trying to keep tabs on anyone looking for him. My footsteps quickened as I doubled back toward my office. The old building at 7th and Pine felt more oppressive than usual when I got inside. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring the echo of footsteps behind me. My office door squeaked open. First thing I did was lock it from the inside, then yank the blinds shut. Heart pounding, I grabbed my phone and dialed a trusted friend, Adrian Cole, an electronics whiz who ran a gadget shop on the south side. "Yo, Damon," Adrian greeted casually. "What's the word?" "I need a sweep," I said, voice low. "Somebody might be bugging my office." "Got it. I'll be there in 20. Cash only." Done. I hung up, tension coiled in my gut. I rummaged my desk for the battered. 38 I usually kept locked away, checked the cylinder, and slipped it into a side drawer. If someone barged in again, I wouldn't be caught off guard. The envelope from last night still sat in the same spot, that black and white threat from the hooded stranger echoing through my head. 15 minutes later, Adrian arrived, carrying a discreet black case. His dreads were pulled back in a ponytail, and he wore tinted glasses despite being indoors. "Let me handle it," he mumbled, flipping open the case to reveal scanning devices and miniature detectors. He swept the room methodically. Near the bookshelf, the detector beeped. "Bingo!" Adrian loosened the wooden trim along the top of the window frame, fishing out a tiny microphone. "This is high grade," he muttered. "Expensive. Someone serious about eavesdropping on your every word." I stared at the bug, adrenaline spiking. "Marcus's circle doesn't want me digging." Adrian nodded. "Keep it, or toss it in the trash, but be careful." When Adrian left, I sat at my desk, the little microphone sitting in my palm like a dead insect. My phone chirped again. Felicia texting. "Anything new?" I typed, "Meet me tomorrow. We need to strategize." Then I turned my phone off. If I kept it on, who knew what else might be tracked? As dusk filtered in through the blinds, I couldn't shake the sense of stepping into quicksand. Marcus Stanton's disappearance was more than a marital spat. Something sinister was at play, and I was squarely in the crosshairs. With Holcroft's hints, Rita's suspicion, and the brand-new bug, I'd already ruffled the wrong feathers. I cleared my desk of the day's notes and locked them away. Maybe I'd check out Justine Palmer next. Or Mabel Carter. Someone had to know where Marcus went. And if they didn't, maybe they'd know why he was so determined to hide. I powered down the lights, letting the city's neon bleed through the cracks in the blinds. Tomorrow would be another scorcher, with trouble looming like storm clouds on the horizon. One thing was certain. I wasn't about to back off. Whoever planted that mic and tossed me that threat had picked the wrong guy to intimidate. Standing there in the silent dark, I felt the weight of this case pressing against my chest. But I'd been here before chasing shadows, nose deep in secrets that could get me killed. The difference now? This time I had a score to settle. Marcus Stanton had humiliated me once. I wasn't going to let him or his cronies pull that stunt again. I locked the office door behind me, descending the staircase into the flickering streetlights. Tomorrow I'd press on, no matter who tried to stand in my way. Because if there's one thing I hate more than losing, it's letting a warning scare me off a fight. A gray, overcast sky blanketed Chicago that morning as I stood outside a sleek high-rise on Lakeshore Drive. The building soared above me, all steel and tinted glass, like it was too proud to notice the rest of the city. This was Justine Palmer's address, one of Marcus Stanton's rumored girlfriends. If Felicia's info was right, Justine might be the last person who'd seen him. Stepping inside, I found a polished lobby with marbled floors and a concierge desk manned by a middle-aged gentleman wearing a crisp navy blazer. A small brass plaque read, "Weston Tower." Soft, classical music drifted from hidden speakers, giving the place an eerily calm atmosphere. "May I help you, sir?" the concierge asked, raising a brow. "I have an appointment with Miss Justine Palmer," I replied, flipping out a well-worn business card. "Damon Lockwood, Private Investigations." He hesitated, then offered a tight-lipped smile. "Miss Palmer is in penthouse 3. Elevators to your right." Upstairs, the penthouse door opened before I even knocked. Justine stood there in a fitted black dress, glossy hair swept behind her shoulders. She had a way of tilting her chin that projected confidence or maybe sheer audacity. As I stepped in, I noticed minimalist decor, glass tables, white couches, and the faint scent of jasmine from somewhere I couldn't pinpoint. "I suppose Felicia told you about me," Justine said, her tone smooth as silk. She gestured to a seat on a modern sofa. "She mentioned your name," I answered neutrally, settling down. "You and Marcus were close?" She shrugged, lips curving into a half-smile. "We were friends, but that ended a while back. I haven't seen him in months." I leaned forward, studying her posture. People can lie with their eyes, but their shoulders often betray them. "Not even a phone call? He's been missing for over a month." "Missing?" She gave an incredulous laugh. "Marcus vanishing isn't exactly breaking news. He's always been the type to disappear whenever it suits him. Maybe he's in Cabo with some new fling or hiding out in Europe. Who knows?" As she spoke, I discreetly slid a small recorder behind a decorative pillow. "Felicia thinks he's in trouble." Justine's expression flickered there, just for a second, a small crack in her polished veneer. She crossed her legs, exhaling. "That's Felicia's problem. I told you, I'm not in contact with him." "Can't help." I offered a polite smile, then let a moment of silence stretch. Sometimes quiet can make people fill the void with extra information, but Justine kept her gaze steady, refusing to elaborate. "All right," I said, standing. "If you happen to remember anything, friends he talked to, places he liked to hide, give me a call. I'm sure Felicia would appreciate it." Justine uncrossed her legs and escorted me to the door with forced civility. "I'll keep that in mind." I gave a quick nod, stepping into the private elevator that led back down. The second the doors shut, my heart rate picked up. Something about her calm facade felt staged, like she knew more than she was saying. Outside, a gust of wind whipped past, carrying the sting of oncoming rain. I walked toward my car, parked half a block away. Suddenly, a black sedan rocketed from behind a delivery van. Tires screeched as it veered onto the wrong side of the street, barreling straight toward me. "Hey!" I yelled, jumping back onto the curb. The sedan missed me by inches, slamming on its brakes just long enough for me to lock eyes with the driver. A masked face stared back, then peeled away, engine roaring. My pulse hammered. Could have been a random maniac. But I wasn't betting on coincidence. Someone clearly wanted to warn me off. Twice in less than 48 hours, I'd gotten the message, "Stay away from Marcus Stanton." I took a shaky breath, then scanned the street. No obvious witnesses, no security cameras pointing our way, just the receding taillights of that sedan. People in Chicago hustle too fast to notice a near-attendron unless they become the victim. Sliding into my own car, I pressed a hand to my chest, telling myself to calm down. If Justine's apartment was bugged, I'd need to come back for my hidden recorder at the right time. Maybe she'd slip and mention something. In the meantime, I had enough leads to stay busy. As I pulled into traffic, my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with an unknown number. For a second, I debated ignoring it. My nerves were already frayed. Finally, I put it on speaker. "Lockwood here." Silence stretched. Then a distorted voice whispered, "Curiosity killed the cat, detective. Next time you might not be so lucky." Click. The line went dead. I exhaled, shoulders tensed. This wasn't just about a cheating spouse. This was about leverage, money, and a missing man who might be holding all the wrong secrets. And apparently I was poking my nose into a hornet's nest bigger than I'd realized. A steady drizzle pattered on the restaurant's neon-lit awning when I pushed through the glass door. Flo's Diner had been around forever, the kind of place where you could still get a decent cup of coffee at midnight. I spotted Danielle Hayes in a corner booth, nursing a mug of tea and idly scrolling through her phone. My ex-wife. We hadn't spoken face-to-face since I took Felicia's case. But Danielle knew the tension in my eyes from a single glance. As soon as she saw me approach, her brows creased. "Damon, you look like you've been chased by a pack of wild dogs." I slid into the booth, letting out a heavy breath. "Close enough. Let's just say I've had better days." A waitress ambled over, wearing a pink uniform and a name tag reading Sasha. She offered a tired smile. "Coffee?" "Yeah," I said. "Black, thanks." Danielle set her phone aside. She was dressed casually, a denim jacket over a floral blouse, and there was a subtle warmth in her eyes that reminded me of our better times, back when we thought we could conquer the world together. You said on the phone you're working a new case? I nodded, rubbing the tension in my neck. Felicia Stanton hired me to find her missing husband, Marcus. It's complicated. Danielle leaned forward, genuine concern in her voice. I've heard of the Stantons. Old money, lots of drama. You sure it's safe? I hesitated, remembering that black sedan and the threatening call. I'm not entirely sure of anything right now, but I can't turn back. A hint of frustration flitted across her features. Damon, you're my ex doesn't mean I stopped caring about whether you end up in a hospital bed. She softened. Remember when we were married and you'd come home with bruises or a busted lip from chasing criminals? I hated that feeling, never knowing if you'd make it back in one piece. I recalled those arguments clearly. Sometimes I'd walk in at 2 a.m. bleeding from a scuffle, and Danielle would fight back tears while scolding me for being reckless. I remember, I said quietly, and I'm sorry it ended up how it did. She drew a slow breath. So, if this is so dangerous, why do it? My coffee arrived. I thanked Sasha, took a sip, and felt the warmth spread through my tired body. Because I owe myself a chance to fix what happened a couple of years ago. Marcus Stanton humiliated me in court, sank my reputation. This might be the only shot I get at setting the record straight. Danielle folded her arms on the table, eyes flickering with empathy. Promise me you'll be careful. I don't want to see your name in an obituary. A faint chuckle escaped. Promise, though caution's never been my strong suit. We chatted briefly about everyday stuff, her new apartment, a work project she was juggling. The conversation felt normal, almost comforting, but an undercurrent of tension lingered, the knowledge that my job could drag me into something deadly. Near the end of our meal, Danielle cleared her throat. Look, Damon, if you need backup or somebody to talk to. I know, I cut in gently. Thanks, but I can't drag you into this mess. She pressed her lips together but nodded. Just remember, even if we're not together anymore, I'm here. Don't let pride swallow you whole. I tossed a few bills on the table and slid out of the booth. I'll keep that in mind. A quick glance at her face told me she wasn't fully reassured, but we'd always had that push-and-pull dynamic. Outside, the rain had picked up, washing the sidewalks clean and reflecting the city lights and glistening pools. I walked Danielle to her car, a sensible sedan she'd gotten after we split. Her eyes flicked to me one last time. Take care, Damon. See you around, I said softly. As she drove off, my phone vibrated again. Another unknown number? My heart tensed, but it turned out to be a text from an old contact at the courthouse, tipping me off that the Stantons had plenty of hush-hush deals in the works. Great. More secrets to unravel. I sighed. This job was messing with my head, and I'd only scratched the surface. The drizzle turned into a downpour, and I stood there on the curb, letting the city's chaotic chorus fill my ears. One thing was certain. If I wasn't careful, I'd drag more than just myself into the storm. Early the next morning, I drove back to Weston Tower. My mind replayed the near-miss with that sedan, but I convinced myself the risk was worth it. If Justine Palmer had any private conversations in that apartment, my hidden recorder might catch them. At the lobby, the same concierge recognized me. He raised an eyebrow but said nothing as I walked straight to the elevator. This time, I carried a slim toolkit in my jacket pocket just in case I had to handle a locked door or two. When I reached Justine's floor, I paused outside her penthouse. No sign of life. I pressed my ear to the door, hearing only silence. If she was out, this was my best shot. After a quick check of the corridor cameras, I used a thin piece of plastic to slip the latch, a trick any burglar might know. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to remain steady. Inside, the apartment looked just as pristine as before. The living room's giant windows offered a view of Lake Michigan's rippling waters. A piece of modern art, twisted metal and neon tubing dominated one wall. Moving quickly, I found the decorative pillow and retrieved the small recorder. The LED was blinking red, meaning it had captured something. Suddenly, footsteps in the hallway. My stomach clenched. Without hesitation, I ducked behind a half-open bedroom door. Voices drifted in Justine and another woman. Their footsteps approached the living room. I peeked through a crack. The second woman was tall, wearing sunglasses and a black trench coat, though I couldn't see her face clearly from my angle. "I told you!" Justine hissed. I'm not taking any more risks. If Marcus is gone, that's Felicia's problem. Or Victor's. The other woman's voice was ice cold. Victor Hall wants results. If you know where Marcus might hide, you'd better speak up. Justine's heel tapped the floor impatiently. I have no clue where that jerk is, but we both know he's got accounts overseas, Swiss, Cayman, wherever. Maybe Felicia can force him out of hiding. I'm done with it. Overseas accounts? My pulse quickened. So rumors about Marcus stashing money abroad were true, and Victor Hall was involved, just as the bug indicated. Fine, the woman said, stepping closer to Justine. But if that snoopy detective Lockwood comes around again, keep your mouth shut. Victor doesn't want any more complications. Understood? Justine let out a bitter laugh. Don't worry, I've got no reason to help that PI. Now get out before someone sees us. The two parted ways, with the mystery woman heading toward the foyer. Once I heard the door close, I carefully slipped out from hiding, silently cursing the crazy risk I'd taken. But I couldn't pass up the chance to confirm my suspicions. Victor Hall, some shady public official known for rumored corruption, was definitely pulling strings behind the scenes. Swiftly, I made my exit. Down the elevator, out the lobby, onto the street. Only when I was safely behind the wheel did I dare replay the recorder. Most of it was muffled background noise, but a 5-minute segment came through crisp. Justine's voice. Marcus has money in offshore accounts. You know that's why Victor wants him gone. Unknown woman. Felicia and Victor are on the same page. If you want to avoid trouble, Justine, stay quiet. The rest was inaudible. But it was enough to confirm that Felicia Stanton was somehow in league with Victor Hall, aiming to corner Marcus's fortune possibly by making him disappear. My client apparently had bigger motives than just finding her missing husband. I felt a rush of anger and adrenaline. Why hire me if she was part of a scheme against Marcus? Maybe she needed an unwitting scapegoat, or maybe she was hedging her bets. Either way, I was playing right into a twisted game. I drove away, the Chicago skyline looming like a row of silent witnesses. Marcus's disappearance was no random fling. This was about massive amounts of money, hidden somewhere outside U.S. jurisdiction. And with Victor Hall's rumored connections, things could get nasty real fast. Gripping the steering wheel, I vowed to find out the truth no matter how many ominous phone calls or black sedans came my way. Because if Felicia expected me to be her pawn, she had another thing coming. Sitting in my office with the blinds half drawn, I played the recording for the third time, making sure I didn't miss any detail. Raindrops tapped against the window like impatient fingertips. The mention of Victor Hall, a name tied to certain backdoor political deals, made the hair on my neck stand up. I flicked off the recorder. Then, on a hunch, I ran a quick online search. Victor Hall, Chicago, political scandal. Dozens of results popped up, rumors of money laundering, illegal real estate schemes, hush money. None proven, all whispered about. So the guy was the perfect partner in crime for a wealthy manipulator. My phone buzzed. Felicia Stanton. I hesitated, then answered. Lockwood, any progress? She asked, her voice sounding impatient, almost irritated. Oh, plenty. In fact, I have a feeling you know more than you let on. Silence on the line. Then she let out a short laugh. If I knew where Marcus was, I wouldn't be paying you. But I did hear rumors from an acquaintance that you might have conflicts of interest. People say you were seen snooping around the old company again. Maybe it's best if we part ways. So she was trying to push me off the case? Interesting. Conflicts of interest or not, you paid me a retainer, I reminded her. I do plan on earning it unless there's some reason you want me to stop looking for your husband. Her tone hardened. I'm just saying if your presence stirs up trouble, we may need another approach. Perhaps I can claim you're fired. Let the heat die down. Let them believe no one's actively searching. A swirl of suspicion rose in my gut. Felicia was basically handing me the same idea that had popped into my head earlier, faking my exit to throw people off. But was she pulling strings to keep me safe, or to set me up? I played along. All right. If you think it'll help me dig deeper under the radar, go ahead, tell people you fired me. We can keep in contact through a private line. Felicia paused. You sure? Positive, I said, forcing confidence into my voice. Too many folks breathing down my neck. This might be the best way to distract them. Fine, I'll make it public. But keep me updated, Lockwood. I want my husband found, or at least I want to know what really happened to him." Our call ended. I stared at the phone, feeling a knot of tension tighten in my chest. This was a gamble. If Felicia was double-crossing me, I'd be labeled a threat and find myself in deeper danger. But if her plan worked, maybe I could move in the shadows, away from prying eyes, to locate Marcus and unravel everything he was hiding. I grabbed my jacket, flipping off the light. If I was going to fake being fired, I might as well do it convincingly. And if that gave me a shot at exposing Victor Hall and Felicia's real intentions, I'd risk it. Outside, the city lights shimmered through the downpour, and thunder grumbled in the distance. Somewhere in the swirl of it all, Marcus Stanton was out there, possibly fearing for his life. And now, I'd be investigating from the sidelines, disguised as a man cast aside by his own client. A flash of lightning illuminated the street, reflecting off a puddle near my feet. I caught my own tense reflection in the water, eyes narrowed, jaw clenched. This was no ordinary case, but for the sake of my battered pride and maybe some twisted sense of justice, I'd keep going. No matter who was playing me, I was done being anyone's pawn. A raw wind rattled the windows of my office that afternoon, carrying in the scent of rain and gasoline from the busy Chicago streets. I let my blinds stay half open, watching people scramble on the sidewalk as if they had somewhere important to be, everyone except me, it seemed. I sat behind my cluttered desk, rereading the text messages I'd sent to Felicia Stanton. We'd agreed she would fire me publicly, broadcasting it to anyone who might be paying attention. The rumor was out. Damon Lockwood had been kicked off the Stanton case for unprofessional conduct. My phone beeped nonstop with half a dozen colleagues forwarding me the news. Even a local tabloid site picked it up. Perfect. The idea was to make me look desperate, incompetent, a liability no one needed to watch anymore. If Victor Hall's people believed it, they might lower their guard. I needed them thinking I was out of the picture so I could quietly track down Marcus Stanton. My mind drifted back to the last time I spoke to Felicia. She'd sounded almost relieved, telling me, "This is best for both of us. Lie low." And so I was doing exactly that, or at least giving that impression. Deep inside, I was more determined than ever. A soft knock at the door startled me. I was expecting a courier or maybe an angry reporter. Instead, a familiar face peered in Adrian Cole, my electronics guru. He wore a light jacket over a hoodie, shaking drizzle off his sleeves. "You open for visitors? Or should I pretend I'm picking up lunch?" Adrian quipped, stepping inside. "Come on in," I said, gesturing to the battered metal chair opposite my desk. "What brings you out in this nasty weather?" Adrian patted a small black device in his hand. "Thought you might want an upgrade. A brand new tracker." He set it on my desk. "Short range, but with strong signal encryption. Slap it on a car or a briefcase, you'll know where it goes." I allowed a slow grin. "You read my mind, buddy." My plan was simple. If I located a lead on Marcus, maybe a friend who saw him last, I'd plant the tracker and see if it led me to the man himself. "Thanks." Adrian gave me a knowing nod. "So rumor says you're off the Stanton job. That's bull, right?" I shrugged casually. "Let's just say I'm a free agent to the public eye." Lowering my voice, I added, "But no, I'm far from done." He cracked a lopsided smile. "Figured as much. Just watch your back, man. I've heard some whispers whoever's behind that missing husband fiasco has money, connections, and a nasty streak. Believe me, I know." I slid the tracker into my desk drawer. But you know me, once I start digging, I don't stop. Adrian seemed to appreciate the confidence, but soon took off, leaving me alone with the buzz of cheap fluorescent lights. I grabbed my phone and dialed a contact at City Hall, a friend of a friend named Jacob Flores, who sometimes had a line on unlisted addresses and hush-hush property records. We'd never been close, but I needed every angle. "Flores speaking," he answered after a few rings. "Jacob, it's Damon Lockwood. I'm looking for, well, let's just say I'm trying to confirm any real estate in or around Chicago connected to Marcus Stanton. Maybe in someone else's name, like a shell company." He sighed. "That's a big ask, Damon. You know how these guys hide their tracks. Everything's layered behind corporations and trusts." "I get it," I said. "But do me this favor, I'll owe you big." He paused. "I can try. Give me a day or two. If there's an abandoned or seldom used property that might match his pattern, I'll let you know. I exhaled in relief. Thanks, Jacob. Keep it quiet. After the call, I spun my chair, letting my eyes drift to the file pinned on my corkboard. Half-finished notes about Marcus's possible hideouts, the threats from that black sedan, Felicia's double game, and Victor Hall's background. The best approach, keep playing invisible while quietly chasing leads. I typed up a quick blog post on a small detective forum claiming I was looking to hand off a complicated missing person case. A cover story, a lure for anyone who might sniff around. That way, if Victor's people trolled the net, they'd see me basically giving up. Sometimes it felt like a twisted version of cat and mouse, except I was both the cat and the mouse. As thunder growled overhead, I couldn't help but smirk. Let them think I'm done. I'd only just begun. 2 days later, I parked outside a modest condo building in Old Town. The architecture had that classic brownstone vibe, with tall windows and ornate trim. Here lived Mabel Carter, the second woman rumored to be one of Marcus's lovers. If Justine Palmer was the sophisticated high society mistress, Mabel, according to my intel, was a more low-key companion. Warm evening light spilled from the street lamps, glistening off the damp pavement. I took a breath of the cool air before ringing the buzzer labeled Carter. No answer at first. Then a crackly voice over the intercom. Yes? Miss Carter? I'm Damon Lockwood. I'd like a moment of your time, regarding Marcus Stanton. Silence. The door eventually clicked open. Fine, come up. Climbing a narrow flight of stairs, I reached a small landing. Mabel Carter, wearing yoga pants and a loose sweatshirt, stood in her open doorway. She had a simple charm. No polished jewelry or manicured nails, just a natural beauty that suggested she didn't chase the same spotlight Justine craved. Make it quick, she said, crossing her arms. I'm busy. I stepped inside. The condo was cozy, cluttered with half-finished art projects, paintbrushes, sketches pinned to a corkboard. A large canvas by the sofa displayed an abstract swirl of blues and golds, reflecting city lights from the window. I'm investigating Marcus Stanton's disappearance, I began carefully. You might have heard I was fired, but I'm still interested in the truth. I'm told you and Marcus used to be close. Mabel's jaw tensed. We were friends, maybe a bit more at times. But that was last year. He ended things, said he had too much on his plate. I haven't seen him for a while now. She looked away, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. I'm guessing you want info on where he might run if he's in trouble? That'd be helpful, yeah, I said, nodding. Do you have any idea? Or any reason to believe he's being hunted? A flicker of worry crossed her eyes. Marcus once mentioned a place out of town, near a lake. Something about needing an escape if everything went wrong. At the time, I thought he was just being dramatic. My pulse quickened. Lake property again, a pattern. He ever mention who might threaten him? She let out a shaky breath. He talked vaguely about people in high places, crooked deals. He never named names, but I knew he was involved in something shady. He'd say, if they find out, I'm toast. I tried not to pry. The tone of her voice told me she still cared about him, or at least worried. When was the last time you heard from him? Mabel hesitated, then walked to her cluttered desk, rummaging through a drawer. She produced a single piece of paper, a note scribbled with Marcus's handwriting. He mailed this to me a month ago. No return address. Said he was going away, needed time. Told me not to mention I'd heard from him. I scanned it. The words were cryptic, referencing dark days and dangerous allies. He didn't specify a location, but the edges of the letter were water-stained, like it had traveled far. Mabel, you realize he might actually be in real danger, I said, meeting her gaze. If you recall anything else, maybe a friend's name or a caretaker at the lake house? She bit her lip. He mentioned a caretaker named Dennis once, an older guy who supposedly watched the place when Marcus was out of town. That's all I got, sorry. It wasn't much, but it was something. Thank you, I said softly. If you remember more, here's my number. She nodded, tucking the letter away. Look, I don't want any trouble. I just hope he's okay. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. There's a reason he confided in you, Mabel. Hang tight and stay alert. If anything seems off a suspicious call, a stranger lurking, call me. People who want him gone might see you as a loose end." Her face paled. "You really think?" "Just be cautious," I repeated, stepping into the hallway. "I'll do what I can." As I left the building, the night wind picked up, whispering through the alleyways like a warning. Marcus Stanton had a private hideaway near some lake, watched by a caretaker named Dennis. That piece of the puzzle inched me closer to the truth. I climbed into my car and leaned my head against the steering wheel, letting the city's hum wash over me. If Marcus had time to mail Mabel, maybe he wasn't a total prisoner. Then again, he might be running from more than one threat. I glanced at my phone. No new messages from Felicia or that hush-hush contact, Jacob Flores. One thing was clear: I had to find that lake property. Time was running out, and if Victor Hall's crew got there first, Marcus might wind up just another body in Lake Michigan's news cycle. Heavy clouds hung low, turning Chicago's skyline into a murky silhouette. In a dimly lit downtown penthouse, Felicia Stanton stood by a panoramic window, phone pressed to her ear. Outside, the city pulsed with car horns and flashing billboards, but inside, the tension was suffocating. Victor Hall leaned against the marble counter, arms folded, his gaze fixed on Felicia's every gesture. The man exuded confidence in a tailored suit, a gold watch glinting under the recessed lighting. On the coffee table lay a folder of documents, each page outlining the labyrinth of offshore accounts Marcus maintained. Felicia's voice was edged with frustration. "I've spread word that Damon Lockwood is off the case. He's practically persona non grata now. Should buy us some space." Victor arched a brow. Good. That detective was getting too curious. He tapped a finger on the folder. "Marcus is out there, Felicia. If we don't secure these accounts soon, we risk losing everything." She pressed a hand to her temple. "I know, but Marcus is slippery, and that's not all word on the street says Damon is still asking questions under the radar." Victor's eyes narrowed. "You said you fired him. If he's snooping around, handle it. The offshore accounts are top priority. Once Marcus is declared legally dead or found under unfortunate circumstances, you inherit the bulk. We divide the profits accordingly." Felicia scowled, tension coiling in her posture. "Don't lecture me on what's at stake. I'm the one married to that coward. But trust me, if Lockwood keeps meddling, we'll have to silence him for good." A hush fell. Both of them felt the weight of the threat. Victor broke the silence first. "There's no room for error. We've come too far. If Damon or that worthless husband of yours tries to expose us, we'll bury them." Felicia turned to the city lights, her reflection a distorted echo in the glass. "Marcus was always so careful with money he made sure no one could trace it directly to him. But I have the accounts. If he's gone, it's all mine." Victor's gaze flicked to his phone, checking for updates. "I'll notify my associates to be on high alert. We find Marcus. We end this." From her vantage point, Felicia spotted a black SUV idling across the street, a faint silhouette behind the wheel. Perhaps one of Victor's men or a hired goon. She felt a twist of guilt, but it evaporated quickly, replaced by cold ambition. This was about survival, about wealth. Love had left their marriage long ago. She disconnected the call, placing her phone on the counter. "So, is that everything?" Victor smoothed his suit jacket. "For now, keep watch. If Lockwood or any new detective resurfaces, let me know. I won't let some has-been PI derail us." Felicia nodded, though her thoughts whirled with anxiety. Damon Lockwood might be a has-been in the public eye, but she had dealt with him long enough to know he wouldn't quit easily. Still, their plan was in motion, and time was on their side unless Damon found Marcus first. The penthouse air felt thick with unspoken menace. Outside, thunder rumbled, as if the city itself braced for the fallout. Neither Felicia nor Victor blinked, locked in the same hunger for that offshore fortune. If Marcus Stanton had an ounce of sense, he'd stay hidden. I'd spent the next day poring over property records, waiting on calls from old contacts. By late evening, I was slumped at my desk, nursing a lukewarm coffee when my email pinged. The sender read, "Unknown," with the subject line, "Urgent." My heart kicked. I clicked it open. The message displayed no greeting, just a hasty paragraph. "I don't have much time. I need your help. They're closing in on me. There's a small lake house in rural Wisconsin near Redwood Bay. I'll send more details soon. Don't trust Felicia. MS Marcus Stanton, presumably." My pulse thundered in my ears. He was alive, and he was calling me out personally. Redwood Bay, that had to be the location. The content matched what Mabel hinted at a lake house off the radar. Outside, the Chicago night was thick with humidity, as if the storm never fully passed. I knew I had to move fast. If Marcus had broken cover to email me, he was desperate. And desperation could be lethal if Victor Hall or Felicia Stanton tracked him down first. I glanced at the clock. Past 10 p.m., if I left right away, I could reach Wisconsin by midnight. But I needed a plan. Rushing in alone was risky. Then again, who could I trust? Felicia was complicit with Victor. My usual police contact was out of town, or so his voicemail claimed. Grinding my teeth, I realized the only option was to go in quietly, see if Marcus would reveal the rest of his location, or if Redwood Bay was enough. Maybe I'd bluff my way around the lake until I found a caretaker named Dennis. I threw essentials into a duffel flashlight, extra phone charger, a couple of protein bars, and my .38 Smith & Wesson. Before leaving, I typed a quick response to the email. Received. I'm on my way. Stay safe. You trust me. I'll do my best to help. No guarantee Marcus would get it in time, but it was worth a shot. I shut down my office lights, double-checked the door, then walked into the swirl of neon and headlights flooding the street outside. Even at this hour, traffic on the interstate might slow me, but I was determined. The tension in my chest coiled tighter. Maybe Redwood Bay would offer answers about the offshore accounts, about who truly wanted Marcus gone, and about whether Felicia had manipulated me from the start. My battered sedan rumbled as I turned onto the main road, the city shrinking behind me. The darkness ahead felt like a live wire humming with danger. But I pressed the gas, each mile pulling me closer to a confrontation I wasn't sure I was fully prepared for. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating a road sign pointing north. Lake country lay ahead, wrapped in mystery. If Marcus Stanton thought I was his last hope, I wouldn't let him down. And if Victor Hall or Felicia tried to make a move, well, I was done playing the fool. Headlights carving through the dark, I drove into the night, ignoring the uneasy whisper at the back of my mind that said this could be a one-way trip, because sometimes you have to risk the worst to uncover the truth. The narrow, winding road stretched ahead under a moonless sky. My headlights carved through the darkness, reflecting off damp pine branches that crowded the asphalt. I was several hours north of Chicago now, heading toward the Wisconsin border. The air felt different here, crisper, scented with pine needles and lake mist. Next to me in the passenger seat sat Danielle Hayes, my unexpected ally for this midnight excursion. "Can't believe I let you rope me into this," she muttered, gaze flicking over the tall silhouettes of trees. "You sure we're not driving into a trap?" I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "Part of me thinks it's definitely a trap," I admitted. "But Marcus emailed me he's at some lake house out near Redwood Bay. If I don't go, he's on his own." Danielle sighed. "You realize we could call the local cops, right?" "I would, but I have zero faith in them not tipping off Victor Hall or Felicia. Both have deep pockets, and there's no telling who's compromised." I glanced at her. "I appreciate you coming along. You didn't have to." She lowered her voice. "You're my ex-husband, Damon, not some random stranger. I might not like your job, but I won't stand by if you're heading into danger." A wave of guilt and gratitude stirred inside me. We might have parted ways, but our connection was still there, a stubborn ember that refused to die. The car's tires crunched over gravel as we left the main road, following a small hand-painted sign that read, "Redwood Bay Private Properties." We passed a single street lamp illuminating a rusted mailbox with Stanton scrawled faintly across it. The trees parted, revealing a small cabin perched on the lake's edge. The water behind it was dark as spilled ink. Danielle inhaled sharply. "Is that someone's car?" She pointed to a sleek sedan parked beneath a drooping willow tree. Even in the gloom, I recognized the silhouette. Justine Palmer's car. I killed the headlights. "Justine must have beaten us here. Let's be quiet." We stepped out into the hush of midnight. Crickets chirped in the undergrowth, and the wind brushed across the lake's surface like a ghostly sigh. My heart pounded as we skirted around the sedan. Through a gap in the cabin's curtains, a faint golden light glowed. Shadows moved inside. Creeping closer, we reached a small porch. The boards creaked underfoot. I raised a hand about to knock when the door suddenly opened. Justine Palmer stood there, her expression tense. She wore a dark windbreaker, hair pulled back in a low ponytail. Behind her I glimpsed Marcus Stanton, pale and gaunt, clutching his left arm as if he were hurt. "You found me," Marcus said, voice hoarse. I wasn't sure you'd come." I exchanged a quick glance with Danielle, then stepped into the modest living area. It smelled of damp wood and old memories. The place had a rustic charm. A few hunting trophies on the walls, a threadbare couch, and a fireplace stacked with logs. Marcus lowered himself onto a chair. "I'm not armed," he muttered. "I told Justine to leave before Felicia shows up, but she wouldn't." He broke off with a wince. A small patch of blood stained his shirt near his arm. "What happened?" Danielle asked gently, kneeling beside him. "That looks bad. Somebody took a shot at me when I tried to meet a contact." Marcus grimaced. "I've been hiding here ever since. I only reached out to Damon as a last resort. The money these offshore accounts Felicia and Victor want them for themselves. They won't stop until I'm dead." Justine hovered, eyes flicking between me and Danielle. "Marcus is telling the truth. I couldn't just leave him. I love him," she said softly, surprising me with her honesty. "He's not perfect, but he doesn't deserve to die." I exhaled, half relieved to see Marcus alive. "We can't stay here long. If Felicia or Victor tracks that email, they'll come." My words died abruptly as a low rumble echoed outside. Headlights sliced across the window, revealing the outline of another vehicle rolling up the driveway. My gut twisted. We were out of time. I peered through the dusty curtain. Sure enough, a black SUV idled under the willow tree, engine throbbing in the quiet. Two figures climbed out, Felicia Stanton and Victor Hall. My pulse leapt as I realized they both carried guns. "We have company," I whispered. "Lock the back door now." Justine dashed to the kitchen to secure it while Danielle helped Marcus to his feet. I reached for my own sidearm, a .38 revolver, but curses filled my head I'd left it in the car, thinking I'd do a quick check first. A heavy knock sounded against the cabin door. "Marcus!" Felicia's voice rang out, mockingly sweet. "Darling, open up! I know you're in there!" Marcus's eyes filled with panic. I motioned for everyone to stay quiet, but the door handle jiggled violently, then crack. The lock splintered. Felicia and Victor stepped inside, weapons raised. "Don't move!" Victor barked, aiming a pistol at me. He was a tall man, salt and pepper hair slicked back, wearing a tailored overcoat that looked out of place in this rustic setting. Felicia, on the other hand, wore dark jeans and a leather jacket, her gun fixed on Marcus. I raised my hands, heart pounding. Danielle froze beside me, eyes wide with fear. Marcus leaned on Justine for support, his wounded arm trembling. Felicia's lips curled into a bitter smile. "So, Detective, it seems you lied about being fired. Couldn't stay away, could you?" Victor snorted. "Lockwood never did know when to quit. You're unarmed, right? Good. Means we can skip the pleasantries." "Let them go," Marcus croaked, trying to stand straighter. "They have nothing to do with this." Felicia strode forward, gun still trained on him. "That's where you're wrong, dear husband. Damon's meddling was always a threat, and now you've dragged poor Justine and Miss Danielle into your mess too. But all we really want is your cooperation." She paused, eyes flashing. "Hand over the offshore passwords, now." Marcus shook his head weakly. "Don't do this, Felicia. We can talk." A loud thwack as Victor pistol-whipped the table, scattering a small lamp. "No more talking. We know the accounts total millions. You're the only one with the codes. Either you give them up, or we force you." I took a careful step, trying to distract them from Marcus. "If you hurt him, you'll never see a dime. He's the only one who can unlock those accounts." Felicia let out a chilly laugh. "How noble of you, Detective. But Victor and I have ways of making him talk. There are worse things than bullets." At that, Justine darted forward, placing herself between Marcus and Felicia. "You won't lay a finger on him." Victor leveled his gun at her. "Sit down, sweetheart, unless you want to die first." My mind raced, desperate for a plan. We were cornered, no weapons, no backup. A single phone call might have brought the local cops, but with Victor's connections, who knew if they'd even show? Felicia cocked her head. "Marcus, do you really want your beloved Justine's blood on your hands? Because that's what happens if you refuse." Marcus's face twisted in anguish. He glanced at Justine, then at me. I don't have the codes on me. They're in a safe deposit box, he lied, voice trembling. Liar, Victor snapped, stepping closer. The tension in the room was suffocating. Enough stalling. Give us the real codes or I'll put a bullet in your wounded arm. See how long you last. A cold dread coiled in my stomach. I could almost see the wheels in Victor's mind turning, plotting how to dispose of all of us once he had what he wanted. What's your plan? I asked sharply, hoping to buy time. Kill us all, then fake some home invasion gone wrong? Felicia shrugged, her eyes hard. We'll make it look like you and Marcus got into a gunfight mutual destruction, with Justine and Danielle as unfortunate witnesses. Then we vanish, along with the money. Victor smirked. No body, no problem. We'll torch the cabin if we must. Danielle let out a quiet, trembling breath. You're monsters, she spat, trembling with anger. All for money? It's always about money, sweetheart, Victor said dismissively. In this world, either you own the game or the game owns you. Marcus's knees threatened to buckle, but he forced himself upright. You don't have to do this, Felicia, he pleaded, voice cracking. We were married, whatever happened to us. It doesn't have to end in blood. Her gaze flicked over him, unfeeling. Our marriage was dead the minute you started stashing money behind my back. Don't pretend to be some wounded saint. Now give me those codes. Wait, I interjected, heart pounding. If you kill him, you'll never be able to access the funds, not entirely. He set up multiple verification steps, right? I shot Marcus a warning glance, hoping he'd understand my bluff. He cleared his throat, catching on. Yes, there's a voice ID plus a secondary key. If you kill me, you can't unlock the accounts. Victor's jaw tightened. He didn't like this complication. Felicia's brow furrowed, frustration battling with greed. Fine, she snapped. Then we'll take you with us. Force you to unlock everything. After that, well, we'll see. Justine's voice trembled with anger. You're delusional if you think you'll walk away unscathed. Damon's a known PI people will trace this back. Victor laughed cruelly. We'll see about that. Right now, we have the upper hand. A moment later, footsteps rustled outside another presence approaching. My heart seized. Had they brought more goons? Danielle's eyes flicked to me in alarm, but then came a shout from beyond the door. Police, drop your weapons! The next instant was chaos. The door banged open, revealing two uniformed officers, guns drawn. A third figure loomed behind them, a tall man in plain clothes, Lieutenant Roland Pierce, an old contact of mine. I'd secretly tipped him off to this location. Despite my fear that local cops could be compromised, Pierce was a stand-up guy I'd worked with years back. Felicia jerked her pistol toward the intruders. No! She screamed, but Victor yanked her arm down, realizing they were outnumbered. The officers moved in, fanning out. Pierce's calm voice cut through the tension. Weapons on the floor, folks. Now! Victor's eyes blazed with fury, but he grudgingly released his gun. Felicia trembled, indecision warring on her face before letting her own weapon clatter onto the wooden planks. Marcus and Justine sagged in relief. Danielle let out a shaky exhale, pressing a hand to her chest. One of the officers cuffed Felicia, while another seized Victor's wrists. Felicia let out a defeated hiss. Damn you, Damon! As her hands were pulled behind her back. I could practically hear the adrenaline ringing in my ears. Pierce stepped closer, his stern gaze shifting over me, Marcus, Danielle, and Justine. Everyone okay here? He asked. Marcus swallowed, nodding weakly. We're alive, thanks to Damon. Felicia spat curses, face twisted with hatred. You won't keep me locked up forever. I'll have lawyers. Pierce's lip curled. We found your car outside, loaded with illegal firearms, and you broke in here with intent to harm. Good luck with the lawyers. Victor just stared at me, silent fury blazing behind his eyes. The once arrogant official was now caught red-handed. No excuse or smooth talk would bail him out this time. The next minutes blurred into a rush of police procedure. Another squad car arrived, lights strobing against the pines. An officer rattled off Felicia and Victor's rights as they were led outside. Despite the tension, a wave of relief coursed through my veins. They were disarmed, and we were alive. Marcus slumped into a worn armchair, holding his injured arm with a grimace. Justine hovered at his side, expression a mix of worry and fierce protectiveness. Danielle stood near me, eyes wide, adrenaline still pulsing. Still. Lieutenant Pierce took my statement first, scribbling notes. "So you had me follow you all the way up here on a hunch?" he asked quietly, arching an eyebrow. I gave a slight shrug. "Had to be sure it wasn't a false lead, or that your presence wouldn't tip them off. Sorry for the secrecy, Lieutenant." He exhaled. "Well, you did the right thing. We've got enough evidence: attempted assault, conspiracy, and from what I hear, Victor Hall's been suspected of corruption for ages. This is his downfall." I nodded, letting relief wash over me. "Thank you for trusting me." Pierce turned to Marcus. "We'll need a statement from you too, Mr. Stanton, about your wife and Mr. Hall's involvement, plus any documents you have regarding these offshore accounts. I suggest you comply fully if you want protection." Marcus looked up, weariness etched in his features. "I'll cooperate," he murmured, glancing at Justine. "I'm done running." A pair of medics arrived, quickly tending to Marcus's injured arm. Danielle helped them by offering a spare towel and a bottle of water. I caught Justine's eye, giving her a small nod and unspoken reassurance that they were safe now. As Felicia and Victor were loaded into separate squad cars, Felicia twisted around for one last glare. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I'll make sure you regret crossing me, Damon Lockwood." I said nothing, merely returned her stare. The threat echoed in the humid night air, but I knew it held no real power. With cops and evidence in place, her empire of secrets was crumbling. Standing on the porch, I watched the squad cars snake back down the gravel road, red and blue lights flickering through the trees. Danielle touched my shoulder gently. "You okay?" I took a moment, breathing in the earthy scent of pine and lake water. "Yeah," I said, my voice unsteady with relief. "I'm just glad no one got killed." She squeezed my arm. "We should get Marcus to a hospital, though. That wound looks bad." I nodded, stepping inside to gather my coat. Marcus sat in the armchair, giving me a tired smile. "Thanks for not giving up," he said. "I know I messed up big time embezzling money, lying to everyone, but I never wanted it to end like this." Justine ran a hand through his hair gently. "We'll figure it out together." I glanced at Danielle, remembering how complicated love can get, how it can shift from devotion to betrayal in the blink of an eye. Felicia's twisted obsession was proof of that. "You two hang in there," I said softly. "Lawyers, statements, it's going to be a long road, but you're alive. That's what matters." He nodded, eyes glistening with gratitude. "I'll make things right." The paramedics loaded Marcus onto a gurney, Justine following close behind. I lingered on the porch, Danielle at my side, feeling the muggy night breeze drift across my face. The tension of the past weeks seeped out of my bones, replaced by exhaustion and a lingering awareness that the story wasn't fully over. There was the matter of Marcus's stolen funds, the damage done to Bishop Holcroft's company, and the swirl of media attention sure to descend upon us. But for now, Felicia Stanton and Victor Hall were in cuffs, their lethal partnership exposed. I'd done my part, and no one had died in a hail of bullets, a small victory in a field where happy endings are rare. As I walked Danielle back to my car, she slipped her hand into mine. I didn't pull away. Maybe tomorrow we'd return to the chaos of Chicago, face the next wave of headlines. But at that moment, hearing the crickets chirp around Redwood Bay, I let myself savor the quiet. We'd survived, and in a world of betrayal and greed, that felt like a triumph worth clutching onto, even if the real battles were far from finished. The morning air in Chicago carried a crisp bite, a stark contrast to the chaotic heat of recent events. I stood outside the 1st District Police Station, clutching a folder stuffed with evidence. A row of local news vans lined the curb, satellite dishes angled to catch every syllable about Victor Hall and Felicia Stanton, the city's biggest scandal in recent memory. Flashbulbs popped the second I stepped onto the sidewalk. "Mr. Lockwood, over here!" called a reporter in a sharp blazer, thrusting a microphone inches from my face. "Is it true you single-handedly exposed corruption at the highest levels?" "How does it feel to be Chicago's new hero?" I forced a polite smile, ignoring the swirl of cameras. "I'm just doing my job," I muttered. "Excuse me." Inside, the lobby was bustling. Officers hustled in every direction, phones ringing off the hook. A harried desk sergeant directed me to Lieutenant Roland Pierce's office. He'd been the one to lead the nighttime raid at the lake house. Now, the weight of formal statements and evidence was on my shoulders. Pierce was hunched over a stack of paperwork, the overhead fluorescence reflecting off his balding head. When he spotted me, he gave a curt nod and gestured to the lone chair. "Morning, Damon. Hell of a night, huh?" I dropped my folder on his desk. "You can say that again. I've got logs, phone recordings, anything that ties Victor and Felicia to attempted murder and conspiracy." My voice caught on that last word. It still felt surreal how close we'd come to a bloodbath. Pierce flipped through a few pages, whistling low. "This is solid gold. Prosecutors will have a field day. Victor Hall's been skating on rumors of corruption for years. Finally, we've got enough to bury him." He paused, then eyed me. "You all right? Media's calling you a hero." I suppressed a weary chuckle. "I'm no hero, Lieutenant. Just a PI who got lucky. Or unlucky, depending on how you look at it." He set the folder aside, leaning back. "Felicia's being charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, and who knows what else. Victor's looking at an even heftier list. You'll likely be called to testify when this goes to trial." I nodded. "I'll be there, whatever it takes to keep them from wriggling free." Pierce scribbled a quick note, then offered me a handshake. "Thank you, Damon. A lot of folks owe you one, including me." On my way out, I caught sight of two uniformed officers escorting a furious-looking Felicia Stanton down the hall. She wore handcuffs, dark hair disheveled, eyes blazing with hatred the moment they landed on me. We locked gazes. "This isn't over," she mouthed, voice trembling with rage. But we both knew, for now, her threats lacked bite. Outside, the press corps swarmed. I tried to keep my head down, but microphones swung around me like flies. They flung questions about clandestine real estate deals, violence at the lake house, rumors of Marcus Stanton's disappearance. I managed a curt statement. "The truth will come out in court. That's all I can say." Stepping clear of the cameras, I gulped fresh air. Already I felt the twinge of regret that I'd traded one brand of chaos for another. People were chanting my name, labeling me a savior. But I knew better. Last night wasn't about glory. It was about survival and justice for a man who'd made bad choices but didn't deserve a bullet. A rustle of stiff breeze hit me, carrying the faint smell of coffee and city fumes. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension slip. Felicia and Victor were behind bars. That was a start. But the aftershocks were only beginning, and I'd have to ride them out, media spotlight or not. That afternoon, I ducked into a quiet corner booth at McGinty's pub, an old haunt with dim lighting and battered wooden tables. Marcus Stanton had asked to meet away from the cameras, away from prying eyes. The moment I spotted him slip in through the side entrance, I waved him over. He moved gingerly, his arm still bandaged from the gunshot wound. Justine Palmer followed close behind, a protective hand on his shoulder. Once they sat, I noticed the tension carving lines into Marcus's face. "How you holding up?" I asked, signaling the bartender for water. "Doctors clear you to walk around so soon?" He managed a weary smirk. "They said I should rest, but the hospital environment was suffocating. I needed to see you." Justine frowned, eyes flicking between the two of us. "Marcus has something to tell you," she said, voice low. Marcus exhaled, shoulders sagging. "Damon, I owe you an apology. Not just for the danger you fell into, but for, well, for everything. I should have come clean about the embezzlement earlier, faced the consequences instead of letting it spiral into something that nearly got people killed." I folded my arms on the table, letting the hum of the pub's air conditioner fill the momentary silence. "You made some bad calls," I conceded, "but you didn't deserve a death sentence from your own wife. So, yeah, you messed up. Now it's time to do the right thing." He swallowed hard. "Bishop Holcroft, my former partner, lost millions because of me. If not for that fiasco, Felicia might never have turned on me so violently. I plan to meet Holcroft and give back whatever I can, make restitution." Justine nodded, relief flickering in her gaze. "I told him it's the only way forward, Damon. If we're going to start anew somewhere far from Chicago, he can't carry this guilt around." My mouth twisted into a small grin. "Well, it's a step. We can set up a meeting with Holcroft, see if he's willing to settle. But you realize he's furious, right? The second I mention your name, I might get an earful. Marcus's eyes were downcast. I'll take it. Better than living in fear. The bartender dropped off 2 glasses of water, and iced tea for me, then vanished. I offered a toast. To a second chance, I said softly. Marcus clinked the glass while Justine managed a tentative smile. Thank you, she whispered, for saving his life, for not writing him off as a lost cause. I shrugged. Let's hope Holcroft sees it that way. So I'll set the meat. Stay low until then. Felicia and Victor's trial is going to stir up a media circus, but you might be able to slip under the radar if you keep quiet. Marcus nodded, gratitude and shame mingling on his face. We'll do whatever it takes. We parted ways outside, the late summer sun sliding behind tall buildings. As I watched them disappear down the sidewalk, a swirl of conflicted emotions settled in my chest. Marcus Stanton, once my nemesis, now the wounded soul who needed redemption. Maybe this city had a knack for turning enemies into allies and for reminding me that everyone had ghosts they couldn't outrun. I stepped into the sleek lobby of Holcroft Industrial Lighting the next morning, a place that once exuded corporate triumph, now tinted with scandal's fallout. The receptionist, eyes wide at seeing me again, silently pointed me to Bishop Holcroft's executive floor. When the elevator doors slid open, Rita Meadows Holcroft's loyal secretary stood waiting, arms crossed. Mr. Lockwood, she said stiffly, he's ready for you. She guided me through a hallway lined with motivational posters into a corner office brimming with sunlight. Bishop Holcroft rose from behind a glass desk, jaw tight, posture rigid. Lockwood, I heard about your part in apprehending Victor Hall. Congratulations, I suppose. I cut to the chase. Thanks, but I'm here about Marcus Stanton. He wants to meet, talk restitution. Holcroft's eyes flickered with disdain. Restitution? That man bled my company dry. Now he wants to come crawling back? Yes, I said firmly. He'll repay what he stole at least as much as possible. I suspect he's got a healthy sum in those offshore accounts. More than enough to patch up your losses. Holcroft exhaled, rubbing a temple as if battling a headache. So the rumors are true, he did have a secret stash. I want full restitution, every cent. And I'm not in a forgiving mood. A tension-laced hush settled. Finally, I nodded. Then let's see what he can do. I opened the door, gesturing to the corridor. Marcus stepped in, shoulders tense, Justine behind him for moral support. Rita Meadows hovered in the background, scowling like she expected a brawl. Holcroft's face darkened. Marcus, he said coldly. Marcus lifted his chin. Bishop, I'm sorry for the damage I caused. I was desperate, but that's no excuse. I'm prepared to return the funds, $3.6 million, if we can settle this without further legal action. Holcroft's lip curled. That's most of what you stole, not all. But maybe it's enough to keep me from pressing more charges. You're lucky Felicia's fiasco overshadowed your embezzlement in the media. Marcus swallowed. Whatever you need in writing, I'll sign. I can't live like a fugitive anymore. Holcroft studied him, then motioned for Rita to bring some paperwork from a locked cabinet. Let's get this in black and white, no more hidden angles. An uneasy negotiation followed. Pages of legal documents, discussion about repayment schedules, disclaimers about future claims. I stood aside, arms crossed, ensuring no one tried a double-cross. Justine watched anxiously, occasionally placing a reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. Holcroft, eventually satisfied, scrawled his signature. Fine. We'll call it even once the wire transfer arrives. But if you cross me again, I'll bury you. Marcus nodded, relief flickering across his worn features. Understood. Turning, Holcroft shot me a narrowed glance. Your finder's fee is in here too, Lockwood, a standard 10% for facilitating the return of stolen assets. Don't get used to it. This is a one-time deal. I allowed myself a grim smile. I appreciate your generosity. With that, Holcroft dismissed us, locking the signed contract away. As we left, Rita gave me a curt nod, no trace of her old antagonism. Maybe she recognized that, for once, we'd ended on the same side of justice. Outside, the midday sun shone too brightly, reflecting off passing cars. Marcus clutched the folder of documents to his chest. It's done, he murmured, amazement tinging his voice. I can't believe Holcroft agreed. Justine exhaled shakily, hugging him. "You're free now," she whispered. "No more running." I lingered, letting them bask in the moment. My phone buzzed, likely another reporter. I silenced it. The finder's fee would help me keep the lights on in my battered detective office for a while. But more importantly, I'd helped close the circle on old scars, for both Marcus and myself. Late evening found me back in my small second-floor office, the one with a battered door reading Lockwood Investigations in peeling gold letters. The hum of city traffic outside was almost comforting. I flopped into my creaky swivel chair, swirling a cup of stale coffee. My eyes landed on the pinned newspaper clipping about the Lake House standoff, corrupt official and socialite wife arrested in shocking conspiracy. My name peppered the article, labeled as the key figure. Some folks even called me a hero. I still wasn't sure how that sat with me. Felicia Stanton was behind bars, facing the weight of her crimes. Her divorce from Marcus was apparently in limbo, no big surprise. Meanwhile, Victor Hall was indicted on multiple felony counts, his once gilded political career in tatters. The city buzzed with rumors of more arrests, more skeletons tumbling from closets. Marcus planned to leave Chicago with Justine soon, searching for a quieter life. He offered a small apology again for dragging me into his mess this time. It felt genuine. I believed he'd try to redeem himself, with Justine by his side. The radio crackled from an ancient speaker on my shelf. A talk show host was analyzing the scandal's impact on local politics. "In a bizarre twist," he said, "Private Investigator Damon Lockwood turned the tables." I turned the volume down, shaking my head. Enough of that. I leaned back, letting the day's fatigue seep in. The phone might ring any second with more press or some new client intrigued by my sudden fame. But for the moment, peace felt tangible. The ghosts of the past, my humiliating defeat in the old embezzlement case, had finally been laid to rest. Outside, the neon glow of a nearby bar sign blinked across my window, painting the desk in shifting colors. I thought of Danielle, how she'd risked her own safety to stand by me. We hadn't talked much since the day of the arrest. Life moves fast, and our emotions needed time to settle. But the memory of her hand in mine as we left Redwood Bay lingered, warm and promising. I closed my eyes, exhaling. The storm had passed, though in its aftermath, a new horizon stretched out. Freed from old debts, I was free to choose my path forward, whether that meant continuing as the gritty gumshoe chasing dangerous secrets or daring to reconsider what truly mattered in life. For now, I savored the victory hard won, messy but real. I let the darkness outside wrap around me like a quiet friend. Tomorrow, the city would churn with fresh scandals, new heartbreaks. But in this moment, the hush of triumph was enough. Sunlight streamed through the frosted glass of my office door, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the morning air. The name Lockwood Investigations glimmered in chipped gold letters. I set down my takeout coffee and stared at the stack of mail that had piled up over the weekend bills, flyers, and a bunch of invitations from talk shows and local radio stations. Ever since the Felicia Stanton Victor Hall scandal broke wide open, my phone hadn't stopped buzzing. I tucked the invitations aside. Talk shows weren't really my scene. The last few weeks had been a whirlwind: arrests, depositions, Marcus Stanton's restitution, and a flood of media coverage I never asked for. Though the city labeled me a hero, I still felt like the same Damon Lockwood, a slightly battered private eye trying to pay the rent. Stepping around my desk, I caught sight of an old photograph pinned to the corkboard. It showed me and Danielle Hayes on our wedding day. We were both beaming, the future supposedly bright. A twinge of regret tugged at my chest. That was before late nights on stakeouts, near misses with criminals, and the slow erosion of trust. She'd walked away, and I'd let her, too consumed by my cases to notice the distance growing. A gentle tap on the doorframe pulled me from my memories. I turned to see Danielle herself, wearing a casual blouse and jeans, holding a takeout bag. Her hair caught the sunlight, and for a moment, I was thrown back to happier times. "Hey," she greeted softly. The front door was open, so I let myself in. I managed a small smile. "Morning, Danielle. Please, come on in. You, doing okay?" She lifted the bag, the scent of fresh pastries wafting through the office. "I brought breakfast. Figured you might not have eaten." She cast a glance at the messy stack of mail. Still fighting off the interview requests, huh? Every single day, I muttered, motioning her to a chair. They want the gritty details about Felicia's betrayal, Victor's meltdown. I just want my life back. Danielle set the bag down and took a seat. Have you thought about capitalizing on it? Maybe writing a book or... I shook my head. Not my style. Then I noticed the flicker of concern in her eyes. Anyway, it's nice seeing you around. You know you don't have to worry about me so much anymore. She exhaled, fiddling with her phone. I know, but worry doesn't just vanish, especially after everything you went through. Plus, it's not like I can just pretend there's no connection left between us. I paused, the hush of the office pressing in. Danielle, about that we never really got closure. Maybe we should talk. Soon. Her expression softened, cheeks coloring faintly. I'd like that. Before the conversation could deepen, my phone rang the landline, an antique contraption that sometimes felt more reliable than any smartphone. I grimaced at the display, another local station wanting an exclusive. I let it go to voicemail, turning back to Danielle with a slightly rueful grin. See what I mean? She just gave a sympathetic chuckle. The morning light brightened the room, and for a brief, comforting moment, I let myself imagine that we might still salvage something, maybe not the same wide-eyed dreams we had before, but a kinder, wiser version. Later that week, my desk overflowed with new case files, petty theft, a missing insurance payout, and a suspicious spouse or two. None of them carried the high stakes of the Stanton fiasco, but that was exactly how I preferred it now. Quiet, routine, almost normal. Around noon, Danielle dropped by again, arms laden with takeout bags from a nearby Thai place. Hope you haven't eaten, she teased, setting the food on the small table in the corner of my office. I arched an eyebrow, standing up. You keep feeding me, and I'll never learn to fend for myself. She laughed, the sound light and genuine. Hey, consider it a perk of having an ex-wife who still cares. We settled into mismatched chairs, steam rising from styrofoam containers of spicy noodles and curry. My appetite stirred. I hadn't realized how hungry I was. Over bites of pad thai, we chatted about everyday things, a new Netflix show, the crowded state of downtown, the silly attempts by certain media outlets to sensationalize my role in the Felicia Stanton case. At one point, Danielle paused, fiddling with her chopsticks. So, Damon, do you think you'll ever step away from this line of work? After everything that's happened? I set my fork down, considering her question. I used to think I'd be a PI till the day I died, but these last few months they've opened my eyes. This job is dangerous, not just for me, but for anyone close to me. Her gaze flicked to the photograph on my corkboard, the one from our wedding. A flicker of sadness passed over her features. Would you ever want to? She hesitated, then pressed on. Give us another shot. Heat rose to my cheeks. I've been thinking about it, I admitted quietly. I mean, I never stopped caring about you, Danielle. But can we make it work if I'm still running around chasing criminals? She sighed, searching my eyes. I guess that's the question, isn't it? It didn't work before. Maybe we've both changed enough to make it work now, or maybe not. A tense silence hovered, thick with possibilities. The smell of curry, the hum of city traffic outside. My heart hammered against my ribs. I don't want to jump in blindly, I said at length, but I also don't want to lose the chance. She nodded, a tremor in her voice. We can take it slow, Damon. No rushing. Just see where it goes. I managed a grateful smile. Yeah, that sounds right. Before either of us could say more, a ping on my phone reminded me of an afternoon appointment, a potential new client. Danielle helped me pack up the leftovers, and I walked her to the door. She paused on the threshold, gaze lingering on me like she had more to say. Eventually, she just squeezed my hand and left, leaving the faint smell of jasmine in her wake. I exhaled, raking a hand through my hair. We'd opened the door to something hope, or heartbreak, or both, but at least we weren't avoiding it anymore. A few days later, after a string of uneventful client meetings, I found myself in the polished office of Todd Mathers, a financial advisor recommended by a friend. The building smelled of fresh carpet and expensive cologne. Smooth jazz floated from hidden speakers. "Mr. Lockwood?" Mathers greeted, stepping forward to shake my hand. A tall, neatly dressed man with a confident smile. "Come in, have a seat." I perched on a leather chair, feeling slightly out of place among the sleek decor. "I appreciate you fitting me in, Todd. You probably heard I came into some extra cash recently, my finder's fee." Mathers nodded, tapping a pen on his desk. "Yes, indeed. Word travels fast. Congratulations on the resolution of that big case. So you're looking to invest, or—" I leaned back, swallowing. "I'm trying to figure out my next move. Maybe I want a safety net if I decide to scale down the detective business. Or if I choose to, I don't know, start a different line of work, someplace less lethal." He chuckled sympathetically. "I can certainly assist. We can explore retirement funds, property investments, or setting up a small consulting firm if you want to monetize your investigative skills in a safer environment." A flicker of memory passed through my mind: gunfights, black sedans trying to run me down, Danielle's anxious face whenever I walked into danger. "Yeah," I murmured. "That all sounds good. Let's see some options." Mathers walked me through charts and projections, discussing stable returns versus higher-risk ventures. I listened, half-focused, glancing occasionally at a photo on his desk showing him with a happy family. My thoughts drifted to Danielle. Could I build something stable enough for us? Eventually, Mathers handed me a neat binder. "Look this over. We can finalize soon. And hey, Damon," he added, voice softening, "congrats on the victory. Not many people stand up to big corrupt players and live to tell the tale." I flashed a modest smile. "Guess I'm stubborn that way. Thanks for the help, Todd." Leaving his office, I felt the weight of possibility pressing on me. I wandered down the street, the late afternoon sun throwing long shadows on the sidewalk. Could I truly step away from the adrenaline-charged life of a PI? Would I be content investigating small disputes or shifting to a safer job? That question swirled in my mind, accompanied by the echo of Danielle's voice. "Do you think we could start over?" Maybe a new path was possible, one that wouldn't keep me looking over my shoulder every second. A soft golden glow bathed the upscale restaurant's interior, tables draped in white linens, soft music playing from hidden speakers. I tugged my jacket straight, nerves buzzing. Danielle had agreed to meet me here for dinner, our first real date since the divorce. My heart pounded like a rookie on his first stakeout. She arrived wearing a simple black dress, hair loosely pinned back, a faint smile on her lips when she spotted me. "Damon," she said, voice warm. "You look handsome." I coughed lightly. "You look amazing, Danielle." I escorted her to our reserved table, conscious of every detail: her subtle perfume, the way candlelight danced in her eyes. We started with polite small-talk traffic, the cozy decor until the tension of old wounds softened, giving way to genuine fondness. After entrees and a shared dessert, I finally summoned my courage. I reached into my jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, placing it gently on the table. Danielle's eyes widened, flicking from the box to my face. "Damon." "It's not what you think," I blurted, cheeks heating. "Or maybe it is. But I wanted to give you something, a symbol that I'm serious about us, about trying again. I don't expect an answer right now." My voice wavered with emotion. "I just want you to know I'm in this for the long haul, whatever shape that takes." Her fingers trembled as she lifted the lid. Inside lay a simple silver band set with a small, tasteful diamond. Nothing flashy, just genuine. Tears glimmered in the corner of her eyes. "Damon," she breathed, voice hushed. "My God, I didn't realize you'd go this far." I managed a shaky grin. "I know we can't rewrite the past, but maybe we can write a better future." She blinked back tears, then slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Yes," she whispered, a catch in her throat. "I want that too." A wave of relief and tenderness broke over me. I stood, guiding her up, and we embraced. No photographers, no paparazzi, just two people finding their way back to each other. After a moment, she pulled away, face glowing with joy. "So does this mean you're giving up detective work entirely?" she teased, half playful, half concerned. I laughed gently. "I'm not sure. Maybe I'll cut back, pick my cases more carefully. I still have these instincts. It's hard to let go completely, but I promise to put us first." She stroked my cheek softly. That's all I need. Outside the restaurant, dusk had settled, painting the city skyline in hues of orange and pink. The warm air caressed my skin as we stood by the curb, waiting for a cab. I tucked the ring's velvet box in my pocket, mind drifting back to the battered folder labeled Marcus Stanton Case, the final pages closed, but not forgotten. Somewhere, Felicia and Victor were awaiting trial. Marcus and Justine had slipped away from Chicago to start fresh. And me, I was standing at a crossroads, hand in Danielle's, heart lighter than it had felt in years. I glanced up at the skyline. Darkness was coming, but the city lights were already flicking on, a promise that even in shadows, you could find a glimmer of hope. We slipped into a waiting taxi, Danielle resting her head on my shoulder. As the car pulled away from the curb, I looked back at the restaurant's warm glow fading behind us. Whatever tomorrow held another case, a quiet new life, or something in between, I had a chance to shape it. And for the first time in a long time, that idea felt not daunting, but exhilarating.